Welcome to Before You Say I Do, where we dive into deep conversations that every couple need to have, and it's very essential to them before they walk down the aisle. My name is Chris Carter, and this is Citi TV, and if you are listening, it's 97.3 Citi FM. On today's episode of Before You Say I Do, we are going to be looking at conflict resolution in relationships before marriage or even after marriage. Anyway, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, I will be introducing my guest. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is Before You Say I Do. And like I said, today we're going to be talking about conflict resolution in relationships. All right, so my guest today is actually a doctor, a counseling psychologist, conflict and ADR expert. No other person than Dr. Emmanuel Hobson. And he's the CEO of Center for Peace and Reconciliation, a lecturer, ADR Master's Program at the University of Ghana Law School. Hi, Doc.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, Chris.
It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Yeah, so, Doc, well, we're talking about conflict resolution in relationships. What are some of the conflicts that, occur in relationships?
Okay, we were looking at a conflict that we anticipate, we look out for, even before we say the yes, I do. Many people don't even look at that to start with. They only look at marriage to be rosy, the beauty, the glory, the joy, the happiness, and then they also say love is actually blind. So they don't even look out for anticipated conflict. Even if they have them in the process of dating, they don't even call it a conflict. So before you look into getting into marriage, there are two different types of conflicts you need to look at. The first one is the intrinsic conflict, which I would call the intrapersonal conflict. Conflict that goes on within you, the person, that you need to find solution through, even before you get yourself ready to consider getting into marriage. The first question you need to just ask yourself is, do you have what it takes if you were to marry yourself?
Oh.
How will that look like? Is it everything that about you that you like? What are your personal struggles? What are some of the things that you go through? Which also then have to do with, number one, your level of maturity. Because experience in life, apart from your upbringing, your life experience, the environmental contributive factors, things that you have adjusted to in life, all play into who you are growing to become. So it takes a level of maturity to be able to navigate and develop certain coping mechanisms that helps you to navigate through life and be who you are.
Right.
And that also tells us that looking at your maturity has to also do with your balanced state of mind, where just your mental health being very okay has to do with not only absence of mental illness, but also ability to cope with life situations and maintain balance and be able to be productive to yourself, to others, and to society as far as development is concerned. So maturity is very key that you need to look at, your personal maturity.
All right, so how can this actually surface during the transition into marriage?
Transition into marriage, when you are not matured, your things that you even look out for, you may not be able to look out for. When you ask some people, why do you want to get into marriage? There are various reasons why people want to get into marriage. You want to get into marriage because you feel you are bored in life. You want to get into marriage because you want to have babies. You want to get into marriage because of support, lonely, money, and all that. So that alone can tell you that you are not matured enough, because your level of maturity will also help you to appreciate the purpose for marriage. So you need to appreciate the conflict of your purpose. Why am I getting into marriage? Is it because I just felt time is running out, so people are pushing me to get married, that is why I want to get married? Or because, oh, the person have helped me so much in life, so to reciprocate, I want to just say yes to marry the person. So these are conflicts that need to be looked at. And some other conflicts intrinsically will have to do with the personal check of where you are coming from. Your background may actually carry certain things that, if not well and properly dealt with, you may not be that balanced to be able to get into marriage.
Right.
You have come from a broken home. You have not dealt with your pain, your hurt, your disappointment, your grief, your anger, and all that.
Right.
And same with the person you are going to be marrying to. You don't know the background of the person. That's why in tree some people say that ukowari abisa. It's much more like knowing where you are both coming from. Sometimes we interpret our present and then we hope for tomorrow based on how we remember our past. So all these things are the conflicts that one needs to look at.
Right. So why is self-awareness important to us before we get into that phase?
That phase is important. Awareness is key, because if you don't know yourself, how sure are you that you'll be able to know even things you need and things you want? You may not be able to know that. So that's why Miles Monroe said something. He said, the greatest tragedy in life is not death, but the greatest tragedy is coming to this world without really knowing yourself. That is why when we are looking at professional premarital counseling, the first thing we look at, just like any medical diagnosis, you go to the hospital and you narrate what you are going through. They run certain tests and checks on you to be able to diagnose exactly the problem you have. When we are carrying on with premarital counseling, we first of all do such diagnosis. We run persona profile analysis on the people going to get into marriage. Then we know exactly what is in the inside of the person to the outside of the person, so that you are marrying to someone that you know from the within to the without. And the person also know him or herself from the within to the without, so that you will not get into marriage and then now be facing some surprises that you have not really anticipated or even looked out for. And at that time that you want to prepare to know how to navigate through, some of the time, the strain and the stress, the energy may not be there to be able to handle it. That is where some relationship goes stale. And far apart from that, because you don't even know yourself, you don't know how you can express love and how you can accept love.
Right.
It is the same way to the other person. You don't know her well. You don't know him well. How can you tell? You may be wanting to love the person, but maybe the way you are expressing your love may not be communicating love. And things that you don't even know that will communicate love to the person, those are the things the person is looking out for,
Right.
to appreciate how much you love him or her.
Yeah. So what are some of the key questions one should ask themselves when it comes to their values, their fears, and their expectations before entering marriage?
The first thing is to ask yourself whether you are indeed ready to get into marriage. It is not always true that one can get 100% ready before getting into marriage. But the prerequisites of trying to be sure of yourself, when we talk about maturity, as we mentioned previously, it is all about your level of knowledge and appreciation of life. And then also, are you working? Are you self-sufficient? Are you being able to take care of yourself?
Yeah.
It is not necessarily looking out for marriage to take care of you. You must be able to get to that level of life.
So you need to be your own person
You
first.
need to be your own person first before you even think of marriage. And then there's one key thing that I always want people to ask as a question in the person they are wanting to marry, is to check who is the authority in the life of that person. Who does that person listen to? Who does that person submit to? If you see somebody who does not submit to anybody and tells you that I am my own person,
I fear
my
nobody.
whole family depends on me, I don't do this and that, it's a serious red flag.
So what are people that say I fear nobody except God?
If you fear nobody except God, then certainly that person must be either a person type that may not be considerate. So it is a very serious question. And if you are able to ask that question and you get to know the person that the person listens to or submits to, use the values of that person to determine who the person you are going to be marrying is. So for instance, if the person he introduced to you that is the person he looks out to, the person that influences his life is a drunkard, how do you take him to be taking such kind of influence for a person like that? Well, there may be some people that may have their own weaknesses, but because of experience of life, they may be able to give some sensible advice and directions to people that they mentor. However, you see some people even say that this is what I do, but I don't advise you to do it. There are some people like that, but we can't guarantee that. That is why you need to look out for the person who influences the person, see that person's values, and then you can be assured that, well, if the person listens to this person, well, I may not trust fully, but to some extent, I can tell that in case of anything, I know who can call him to, call her to order or straighten out.
All right. On that note, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Welcome back. So if you just joined us, this is Before You Say I Do. And we're actually having a conversation on conflict resolution when it comes to relationships, especially before you walk down that aisle. So Doc, now, how does intimacy come in when it comes to conflict resolution?
Well, intimacy, the conflict of intimacy is one of the major 5 intrinsic conflict, apart from the conflict of maturity, conflict of purpose, conflict of identity and background, then conflict of intimacy. That is why we are emotional people. Human beings are very emotional. And so when you don't have that interconnection as far as your interpersonal relationship is, we are looking at that from extrinsic point of view. However, intrinsic conflict can influence intrinsic conflict, and intrinsic conflict can influence extrinsic conflict.
So they can both influence each other.
So take for instance, if from emotional point of view, my appreciation of how much love I need, how much I express my love, and what also shows that somebody loves me, the needs are not met from my point of view, then certainly I will not be satisfied and I will not feel love. And if I don't feel love, then certainly I'll protect what I may call my emotional territorial boundaries. In other words, I don't want to be hurt. I don't want to be held. I don't want to be touched, because this is not the way I want to be loved. This is not how I expect to be loved. In other words, I don't even know whether the person loves me, can protect me, I can feel secured, I can be emotionally correct with the relationship I am in with. It is because before you get into the relationship, you don't even look at whether the person's background, you are looking at friendship or you are looking at husband. In many relationships that works best as far as intimacy is concerned, we need to look at whether friendship is developed within the marriage or they are just husband and wife. especially when we are looking at it from this patriarchal system, where men play the role of dominance, authority, power. You don't have to do this, you don't have to do that. If you do this, you will not be respected, and all that. So that hype of and on respect is something that many people take out of context.
Right.
So respect should be like, I have to be this, I don't have to smile, I don't have to make my face look approachable, I have to be this way and that way.
So that's a bit of toxic masculinity.
Command respect. It is not only masculine, it can also be feminine. Some women also, because of their background, what they have gone through, I don't have to make this, I don't have to look like this to the man because he would take advantage of me. Oh, I was with my auntie, the way she was and the way the husband treated her. Oh, I will not do that. I will not give a room to any man to walk over me. So that kind of entrenched defensive position has already eaten you up. So you take a position without even anything happening to trigger that yet. So it is a predisposition. So it makes the intimacy very difficult. And when intimacy is taken out of relationship, the relationship is stale.
Yeah, so how do you work on that? So basically that also sounds like your background.
Yes.
That definitely sounds like background. So putting all together, how do you work with on that?
First of all, to acknowledge that you are not friendly. Your intimacy, personality is not helping the relationship.
Do people know?
Yes, that is why I always say that two heads are better than one.
Oh.
That is why in the area of extrinsic conflict, which is to resolve conflict of communication, you need to learn how to get feedback from one another.
From each other.
So that you can tell, how am I looking like? How are my expressions? Sometimes they may not even know. Take for instance, somebody who for all his life or her life, he has had a mean face because of an experience he has had in life, experience he might have had in life. So the face becomes so serious and feeling that that is what makes him a man, or that is what makes her a woman that will not be taken advantage of, without even knowing. Some of these things need to be dealt with even before you get into the marriage.
Right. So are there any kind of like coping mechanisms or tools that one can actually use to, you know, work on herself or himself?
Yes, the individuals are different. So there is no way you can use a generic approach because what may work for person A may not work for person B. That is why the persona profile analysis is very key.
Persona profile analysis. And how does that work?
Yes, a persona profile analysis is a kind of lab test. It's a kind of lab test that reads the person from within and appreciates the person's makeup.
So when you say lab test, like you go to the laboratory?
Yes, but this one is not to take blood, but we use the psychometric tools or instruments where the person submits to certain probing analytic statements of questions that reveal, unknown to the person, the various links into the person's deep-seated idiosyncrasical responses.
And this work with only psychologists?
That it works with psychologists and therapists that are certified, like myself, in that field. So when you come, we are able to run that analysis on you, and then you yourself will be aware of all these little details in you. So your confidence of even knowing yourself, your confidence of even knowing the person you are going to marry, all makes all the difference. And then you are able to even tell the conflict you will have even before you meet the conflict. What an appropriate instrument or tool or skill you have even before getting into the marriage. And apart from that, one major conflict they need to also look at is life cycle conflict management. each of the age bracket we go through,
Right.
before we get into the marriage, we go through certain psycho-emotional issues at certain age brackets.
Yeah.
And when you are getting to another stage, you are going through a different cycle again. And when you get into the marriage, you are going through a different cycle again. And when you are beginning to have your children, it's another cycle.
Right, I get it. So it's like the more you evolve,
the more you
have
evolve, there are different level of
conflicts
that you need to deal with to get to the next level. And if you are not able to deal with the first one, certainly you are carrying a conflict to the next level. And the next level will get to the next level.
Wow.
And unfortunately or fortunately, marriage can make you or unmake you psycho-emotionally. And when you get to certain level or age bracket, it is very difficult to undo what you have done to yourself, because that will link into how the rest of your life, whether health, emotionally, physically, biologically, psychologically, will be balanced. And that is why most people, without knowing all these things, end up in marriages that when they get older, then their life becomes shorter than they can even think about, because they don't know that in the process and the journey of their life, there are a lot of things that have contributed into running their health down without them knowing.
Right.
Because relationship contributes so much in our well-being as we age.
Right. So how can this actually affect the marriage?
It will affect
unresolved intrinsic conflicts.
Seriously, we don't even have to think how it will influence the marriage. It is not only the marriage, it is even the individuals in the marriage that will be seriously affected.
So one person's unresolved conflict can actually affect the other.
Other person's conflict, and vice versa. My conflict that is not resolved within will trigger a conflict between me and you. And then that conflict will also trigger an intrapersonal conflict in you. Unfortunately, the intrapersonal conflict play about 85% role in our total well-being.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's really a lot.
So if you don't look at your intrapersonal conflict you go through, then certainly I don't think you are very serious in wanting to maintain your well-being.
But is it the case that people do not even know that they're going through? Don't you think it's the case that people do not even know that they're going through something?
Yes, they don't even know. And they don't even know the contributing factors.
Especially when it comes to trauma.
Exactly so.
Because some people are able, or sometimes the body can even shut down a trauma that happened to you. But in the future, it now comes up. So
that is why another test we run is pre- and post-marital problem analysis. It's a test that we run on the people that measures the conflict severity and then the community pain that the individual go through and the severity of that pain. Because even if you talk about anger, we have about 13 different types of anger. If you don't know the type of anger the person is harboring, going through, you may not know what to do to help that person. And then there are various little things that are linked to our emotion to trigger certain level of pain, hurt, trauma, anxiety, fear, and all those things. However, if you run such tests, it helps you to appreciate the severity, the complexity, and then the level of the various things and their percentage of their level of pain and the hurt. So when we are dealing with them, we go straight into dealing with them according to diagnosis.
Right. So doctor, how can people reach out to you if they want to reach out to you?
Get in touch, or you can get in touch with me either on 0244 907190 or 0244 9071 90. 0244 9071 90.
All right, guys. So that was Dr. Emmanuel Hobson, a counseling psychologist, conflict and ADR expert, CEO of Center of Peace and Reconciliation. He's a lecturer and ADR for the ADR Master's Program at the University of Ghana Law School. And we've been speaking on conflict resolution.
Before you say yes,
yeah,
I
before
do.
you say I do. Right. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching this episode. My name is Chris Carter. Catch you on the next.